Welcome to Golden Life Living with Charise. We are covering a three-part series on walking in your purpose. And today we will cover the final steps of a four-step phase going from isolation to elevation, focusing specifically on transformation and elevation. And joining us for this very important discussion is Minister Ann Thomas. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So now, if you will, just for those that are tuning in, just give a brief synopsis about yourself.
Well, I'm a minister, an author, and a speaker, and I have the awesome opportunity to travel to different places of the world, different churches, different events to encourage, equip, and empower people to recognize their full potential and to walk in their purpose and their destiny.
And that's a great segue. If you can, just clarify for the audience what it is to walk in their purpose.
Absolutely. It is to be able to identify that very unique passion that God has placed in you, that unique gifting, whatever it is that God has placed in you, to not only find fulfillment in, but also to help others discover who they are as well.
And if you can add on to that, why is it limiting to an individual when they are not walking in their purpose?
Absolutely. It's limiting because, as we've said in the previous segments, is, you don't just want to be alive. You want to be living. You want to have a life that is full of joy. And, you limit yourself. When you're not walking in your purpose, you limit yourself from the fulfillment of knowing that you're making a difference. Because isn't that what we all want at the end of the day, is to know that we've impacted lives in a positive fashion. And so you limit not only your own ability to walk in that fullness and that joy, but also you limit others who their purpose and destiny are tied to you discovering yours.
Absolutely. So today we're speaking specifically about transformation and elevation. Mm-hmm. But for those that are just tuning in, if you can just briefly, because previously we spoke about breaking unhealthy soul ties, mm-hmm. and then also isolation and preparation. If you could just give a very quick and brief synopsis of what those three steps entail.
Absolutely. So we did talk about unhealthy soul ties, and basically a soul tie is an emotional, spiritual, or sexual connection to a person, and therefore that means that we are connecting with people all day long. What makes it an unhealthy soul tie is when we connect with someone and there is a toxicity in that connection that then invades our identity and invades how we interact with other people, how we see ourselves. So we talked about breaking away from those types of relationships, but then from there, going into what we call the isolation phase. And that isolation phase is a place where you look inward, where you recognize that you've not only been in the wrong relationships, but you also have the tendency to choose the wrong relationships. So you begin to look at yourself and say, wow, why am I making those decisions? And then preparation. Now that we've identified some things, now we have to prepare to be that better person.
All right. So now transitioning to the transformation and elevation, which is their final phase, just briefly define transformation and elevation.
Yeah, so when I have to go back to my book. It's titled The New Consecrated Cocoon. The transformation process, to transform, means to take on a whole different look. It is to have a radical change. In other words, when people look at you, you don't even have to say anything. They can tell that something about you have changed. And so coming out of your isolation and your preparation process, if you have surrendered to that process, if you've allowed that process to do what it is designed to do, to remove the things that needs to be removed so that you can really emerge as that butterfly that we talk about, if you really allow that to happen, there comes a time that people will actually see. When I was in my cocoon, I can feel, I call it the light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. I could see the light, but it wasn't quite there. But just seeing the light caused there to be a reflection on me that there was obviously a change happening in my life. And I had people come up to me and go, what's going on with you? And it was awesome because it was the inner working that was now manifesting on the outside.
And that won't just be people that you know, it's also strangers.
Absolutely.
So it's like reconfirming.
Absolutely.
So now what is the elevation? If you had to define it, what's the elevation? I'm going to assume that's your full-blown butterfly and you're able to fly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is the soaring. When you think about soaring, though, you have to think height, because elevate means to come up higher. And so ultimately it is about raising, bringing your perception to a whole nother level, how you perceive yourself, how you perceive your relationships, how you perceive your purpose, your identity. Once you get to that level, because a caterpillar only sees things at one level. The caterpillar is on the ground and everything is at a low level. Once you become that butterfly, you now have what I would call an aerial perspective. You get to see things that the caterpillar never saw before.
Okay, we're going to take a break right there. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, my name is Charise, host of Golden Life Living. I want to speak to you about my transformational process from being a domestic violence survivor. Part of my process included self-reflection that included taking a deep look within. I had to ask myself some essential questions. One question being, who am I? It seems simple on the surface, but you really have to dig deep and peel back the layers, and that's essentially what I had to do. 2, I had to ask, what were my gifts or talents? I had to re-identify with who I was, because after you peel back the layers, you're no longer living under the expectations of others. You're becoming clear on who you are. Another question I had to ask myself is, what was I allowing, who or what I was allowing to control me? There was a instance where I was bitter, and I felt like that was giving power to my perpetrator. And I decided that I wanted to be better, that I am a nurturer, I do care, I am loving, and it's not right for someone else to change that. So just want you to know that if you're going through anything, any traumatic experience, we can't deflect, we have to self-reflect. And only when you do that can you begin your healing process. Welcome back to Golden Life Living with Charise. We are covering a 3-part series on walking in your purpose. And today we are tackling transformation and elevation. And to guide us through these steps is joining us is guest Minister Ann Thomas. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
So we've been going through a lot. So now we're just going to get into the transformation. So let's talk about transformation, the process, and the beauty that awaits one on the other side of it.
So it definitely is a process, and that's the thing, if you look at an actual metamorphosis process, because that's what I did. I did a lot of looking at the videos. You can actually see the wings forming, which is the most beautiful thing. You can see the shape changing. You can see all of that. And so it is a process. We have to allow for things to form, the way we used to be. We have to allow a new identity to come forth. We have to have a new mindset to come forth. So there literally is a process. And if we are not careful, we can abort that process too early. We can feel like we're in that transformation, but we haven't allowed the full process so when we abort it, we literally go back to, I kind of call it like a premature baby. A baby comes out prematurely and they can't function on their own. And so we end up connecting ourselves again with people who begin to draw us back into those toxic relationships and behaviors.
And that kind of speaks to my next question is what will occur during this process? And so one of the things is you could be sucked back in.
Absolutely.
Is there something else that people need to be aware of?
Well, one of the biggest things of going into the cocoon that I've found is generally, although there are people around you and they may even, they authentically love you and they want to see you become your best you. They still can't go through that process for you. They can't fully understand it. So for some people, they will feel sorry for you, and that's understandable. But you don't want them to talk you out of that place, because that was one of the biggest struggles I had. Was everyone was looking at me and said, okay, you kind of grieved long enough, you kind of done this, it's time for you to get out there. But you got to know for yourself that you have allowed that purging to run its course. And so I would say one of the biggest dangers is just allowing people to talk you out of the place that you know that you need to be.
And it sounds like they need to be on their own timeline, and that
Absolutely.
process, the timeline is going to be different for each person.
Everybody.
If it was a month for you, it may be 2 years for someone else.
Absolutely.
But you have to be very realistic in that regard.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Now let's talk about elevation. What does this process look like?
Well, I would say that elevation is really, like I said, it's about coming up higher. And for a lot of us, the biggest battle is in our mind. It doesn't matter who we connect with. If our mindset remains the same, then ultimately we're going to repeat a lot of our old patterns and behaviors. So to come up higher, it really is about expanding your mind. It is about educating yourself. Sometimes some of us find ourselves in relationships of abuse, find ourselves in just in situations that if we would have taken the time to educate ourselves about some things, we may not have made those decisions. So during this time, as you elevate, as you come up higher, seek to engage in things that will enlarge your thinking, that will expose you to things that you've never even considered before, so that you can allow your mindset to go to a whole new level. Because again, like I said, the battle really is in our mind. Old mindset is going to cause you to do old things.
Absolutely. And it sounds like also during this process, when you're doing the elevation, you may leave some people behind.
Oh my Lord, I'm so glad you went there. Can we just speak to that for one quick second? Because let me just say, you come out as a butterfly. You do not want to hang out where the caterpillars hang out. And that is not being mean, but understand, a caterpillar will never understand what a butterfly sees. A caterpillar will never go where a butterfly goes. And so one of the biggest dangers is that butterfly coming out and desiring to go back to the old caterpillar hangouts. So you really have to be careful, you do. But I just want to say this to you. It's not a bad thing that you have to leave some people behind. Some people can't go where you're called to go. And not only that, don't look at it as a bad thing. People come into our lives for a reason and a season. If they're no longer to be in your life, then that time has expired, and it's okay.
And that's very important in your journey, because it's your journey and no one else can live it out for you.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that.
Okay, we're going to take another break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, my name is Charise, host of Golden Life Living. I want to speak to you about my transformational process from being a domestic violence survivor. Part of my process included self-reflection that included taking a deep look within. I had to ask myself some essential questions. One question being, who am I? It seems simple on the surface, but you really have to dig deep and peel back the layers, and that's essentially what I had to do. 2, I had to ask, what were my gifts or talents? I had to re-identify with who I was, because after you peel back the layers, you're no longer living under the expectations of others. You're becoming clear on who you are. Another question I had to ask myself is, what was I allowing, who or what I was allowing to control me? There was an instance where I was bitter, and I felt like that was giving power to my perpetrator. And I decided that I wanted to be better, that I am a nurturer, I do care, I am loving, and it's not right for someone else to change that. So just want you to know that if you're going through anything, any traumatic experience, we can't deflect, we have to self-reflect. And only when you do that can you begin your healing process. Welcome back to Golden Life Living with Charise, where we are covering a three-part series on walking in your purpose. And today we are speaking to your final phase of transformation into your elevation. And joining us for this very great discussion is Minister Ann Thomas. So during this segment, I just want to offer the audience some tips and advice as it pertains to this transformation phase and elevation phase. So let's just jump right in with the transformation phase. I guess steps they can take, or maybe things they should be aware of as they're going through their transformation phase.
Absolutely. Going through the transformation phase, what we really need to keep in mind is there are old mindsets and old things that we are going to have to let go of. We're going to have to release, and we're going to have to embrace the new. Because ultimately, the old adage says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So ultimately, at this point, we should be looking to make different decisions. We should be looking to choose different types of relationships. And again, as I said before, it really is about our mindset. What are we doing to educate ourselves? What are we doing to enlarge our thinking? What are we doing to expand our thinking? That's what's happening in the transformation process, and allow yourself to go through that process fully. Like Charise said, it might be 5 months for me, it might be 2 years for you, but whatever you do not abort the process.
Very good tips. And so now, if you will, some tips and action steps during the elevation phase.
Yeah, the elevation phase is really awesome because in that phase, I was able to kind of do a look back. It's really important. Sometimes we forget to celebrate our personal victories. And so coming out as I was elevated, I was able to look back to where I was, but not with shame, not with guilt, not with condemnation, but really feeling a sense of victory. Like, wow, what came to knock me on my back caused me to stand stronger. And yes, the process, I was on my back for a while as I isolate, preparate, and even transform. But now in the elevation process, celebrate yourself. And then not only celebrate yourself, but do a look back. I look back for those caterpillars who were in that process and didn't know what was going on, so that I could be a voice to help, like you said earlier, hold on, baby, the change is coming. Just stay with the process.
Something you hit on that I felt is very important is the no shame, no guilt. Because I think that's the biggest hindrance for people in being able to move forward and walk in their purpose. Because you're shackled and you're a slave to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it is important because we all have a story to tell. As a matter of fact, when I started writing my book, my ex-husband had not asked for a divorce.
Okay.
So when he asked for a divorce, I had to stop writing. Why? Because I couldn't take readers where I had not gone. So it is really important that when we go through a process that we embrace it, because there are others that need to hear our story.
All right. So if you could just quickly recap the importance of walking in our purpose and breaking the unhealthy soul ties and going through that isolation, preparation, transformation, elevation phase.
Wow. So let me try and do this real quick. So basically, we started with unhealthy soul ties. It's important to break toxic, stop toxic behaviors, not connect ourselves with people who are going to take away from your life rather than enhance it. Once we do that, we want to go into a place of self-introspect, which is isolation. Allow yourself without shame, but with the necessary conviction. Conviction should cause you to want to change. So allow that to happen. And from there, you go into preparation, where you now begin to do things differently. From there, we go into the transformation, which now you're expanding your mind, you're looking to change your mindset. And then finally, the elevation, now you're at a new level. Celebrate yourself, but then also don't forget to look back for those who you are able to help identify their purpose. Because it's important that we all not just be alive, but actually live our life to the fullest.
All right. This has been a very awesome and enlightening experience.
Yes.
So before we get ready to go, please share with the audience any upcoming initiatives you have, as well as ways they can connect with you.
Okay, so I would say the best thing to do would be to go to my website. It is AnnThomasMinistry.com, and there you can find all of the events. that I am partaking in. Also, you can find my book, The New Consecrated Cocoon, and I hope that you'll sign up. We have an online Breaking Unhealthy Soul Ties workshop that is coming up in just a few weeks, where you can do the workshop right in the privacy of your own home using your phone or your computer. I think it's going to be great.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. I want to offer you to come back next week as we continue to grow together.